Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DiFiorio. I'm your host for this show. Thank you so much for taking the time today to tune in. Go ahead and subscribe to the show on all of the different platforms you listen to podcasts on or watch podcasts on YouTube, because that really helps the show gain more popularity online, especially if you rate and review the show. If you love what we do and you want to leave a 5-star rating or review, go ahead and do that. Also, share these episodes on social media when you get the itch to be like, man, this is too good to keep to myself. I just want to promote this. This is what I would ask if you want to support the show. Now, also, I want to make you aware of services that Keys to the Shop offers. We offer consulting and coaching for coffee shop owners and operators, for leadership teams anywhere in the world, thanks to the internet. We also go on site to these places to do assessments and follow-up coaching to help cafes really optimize and create the next level for their business for hospitality and quality and culture. And you can just email me, chris@keystotheshop.com, and let's have a conversation and see if this is the right fit for you. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Arto Brick at Arto Brick on Instagram. Also, our friends at the Pacific Barista Series, that line of plant-based performance beverages. We're going to talk more about those folks later in today's episode. But today, I wanted to actually answer a question that I just got not too long ago, actually in June at the last Coffee Fest. Somebody went to one of my sessions and took one of my courses at the show, and I'm so thankful for them doing that. I get really good feedback about these conversations we have at the workshops, as well as the on-floor conversation corner talks and the room sessions that we do, the lectures. It's a lot of fun. So if you're at Coffee Fest, by the way, it's not an ad for them necessarily, but it is. I'm there every year, 4 times a year, different cities. But one of the things that makes it really cool to do these shows is I get to meet people and answer questions that they have that I'm sure you have as well. And I have actually decided to answer this question today because it's not the first time that I've been asked this. And actually, if I dig into my notes, which maybe like you, I have hundreds and hundreds of notes that I've just compiled on my phone, and on my laptop that I dig through and I'm like, yeah, that's actually a good idea for an episode. This question, though, has come up many times and I've wanted to address it, which is, what is it that I need to do in order to be ready to own my own coffee shop, to run a coffee shop? And to a greater degree, maybe you're not wanting to own your own coffee shop, but you want to be trained in a way that prepares you to do well as a professional in a coffee shop. The good news is there is an answer to this question. We are going to do it by comparing the two options you have. Now, the person who asked this question said basically this. They said, before I went to Coffee Fest, I thought it was necessary to work in a cafe to understand workflow and gain core barista knowledge. But now I think it's not necessary. And they didn't really explain why. Maybe they thought the session was good enough that they felt energized about the topic, which we'll talk about that. But they said, now I don't think it's necessary. And maybe getting a certification in a barista course is good enough. What do you think? And do you have a favorite barista training course that you recommend? So we're going to answer this question basically by simply saying both options, to work in a coffee shop and to have formal education and extra cafe or outside cafe training, is helpful. It's just what you get from it needs to find a home in your experience. And so it depends on what you're looking to get from these experiences. Actually, somebody who is potentially a client of mine, we're in conversations right now, asked this very question just this week. We're in the midst of some discovery calls about working together, but they wanted to learn about coffee and wanted to say, well, maybe I need a coach and consultant, but I also need to, go and learn about coffee myself in a course or a school. And to this, I say, I believe you can always learn something about coffee by going onto the internet and doing a course like Barista Hustle or coffeebusiness.com, the folks that used to be Bellissimo, that I used to work with actually as an instructor in some of their schools. I've worked for a couple of coffee schools in my time, even started a coffee school briefly. But the thing that you get from these places, whether you go to the campus to learn or you do this work online, is you still get a lot of knowledge that largely exists as a concept. And that's good because mindset and information are part of the learning process. Your mindset from knowledge that you gain in a classroom setting is really just a seed of an idea. Just like if you sat in at a class of mine at Coffee Fest and you took notes and you had this idea that, wow, that was a really good point Chris made, or during our workshops, we kind of are interactive. And so somebody sitting next to you might bring up a solution to your issue and you're thinking, that's really great. I got to remember that. I'm going to write that down. Now that's the seed, that's the beginning. That's not the same as the actual delivery of value of that idea being put into practice. That's where real world experience comes in, where education that's formal, be it through consulting or a classroom setting, cannot actually touch. And this is something I'm careful to talk about with our clients at Keys to the Shop, is that as you work your cafe, and if you're a new cafe, for example, you are going to learn a lot about this business that you could never have learned if you had hired the best coach, consultant, gone to the best coffee school, had your socks knocked off at the SCA. None of that will actually do what working in your own business will do for your wisdom, decision making, for your confidence, and consideration of all of the different variables. You want to account for those things in part. You want to prime the pump of your mind and your heart and visualize and think about and consider, make room for the stuff that will come afterwards. And that's a lot of what this kind of education, the certifications, the classes, if you go through level 1, 2, and 10, 15, whatever it is, for somebody's version of a barista training course, not saying you shouldn't do it, but what you shouldn't say is what this question kind of implies, which is, I don't think it's necessary to get that experience. I can get it through certifications. And listen, lots of people who have started very successful coffee shops have learned by doing, and no, they've had no formal education. They've never gone to a coffee school. Coffee schools weren't even around when they started their coffee shop. They reinforced a cardboard box and put a cup of coffee on it and sold it for a nickel, and now they've got a global brand, right? So that this is to say that you can make almost anything work if you've got the determination, drive, a little bit of good positioning, nice, good relationships, and you just stick to it. There's more to it than that. But the point is that the experience often is the thing that you can point to as the biggest part of the educational process, outside of the market research, a very good business plan, the data analysis, and all of this stuff. Most of these big brands that you respect today were not started with formal education. They were started more around, let's start with the experience we have. And they could have been helped by working in a coffee shop. They could have been helped by having a little bit more knowledge about what it's like to work in the day-to-day environment of workflow, the workflow of coffee shops. But they made it work, and they used their step-by-step building of their business as their own education. Now, that's just a caveat to say neither formal education nor prior work in a coffee shop is absolutely necessary, because the exceptions exist all around us. We're obsessed with formulas for success and mitigating failure by trying to, bolster our chances with formal education. And so we say, what is the best? We always say, what is the best espresso machine? What is the best technology or syrup? The best coffee roaster to use? All of these things. If I choose the best of everything, that will make my coffee shop successful. And maybe even make my coffee shop the best, which is kind of a misnomer. That it's not actually true, because you could have the best, but tools or ingredients don't create it's the sum of the parts, if you will. So all of the ingredients could be lined up on the counter, but it's what you do to combine them in the appropriate order with the amount of heat and time and mixing and all of that that creates a dish, a final thing that's enjoyed, that in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing will yield something pleasant, right? So this question makes me think, are we looking for a silver bullet when it comes to certifications, when it comes to a barista course, where we can just say, my hands are washed of this now. I've sent all my baristas to barista school. I spent a lot of money on an online subscription to a very good, and they are good, barista course, and so they should be doing a good job. It should be, my business is, it should be great. We're good on the training front. What I think we need is, a little bit more, trending menu items, or maybe it's our location. I don't know what's the issue, but I've purchased what I think is something that guarantees my success, because it has got the pedigree of, industry excellence. And again, this is not always a guarantee, and often is not actually. It is just a part of what ultimately is up to you to combine and make into the coffee shop that works, or a career for yourself that works. You take the opportunities that are given to you, whether you're starting a coffee shop or you're working your way into a career that you want in coffee, and you're the chef. You're the one using those ingredients of opportunity and tools and education, and combining them in ways, in situations that come out favorably, right? So I think that's worth talking about, is that there is no silver bullet. There is, just because you hire me, or you go to a coffee school or something like that, yeah, you're going to get value from it, but it's not a guarantee of success. And so let's dispel with this idea that what is necessary, or what is going to be a guarantee, actually exists, because there's always going to be an exception. What's really important is that you are a learner, and you can learn and continue to use what you learn to develop yourself, develop the concept, and be open to changing things as you learn more, rather than just relying upon the investment that you made as this like stationary thing. Like, no, we invested in this way of doing it. We went to this coffee school. They said to do it this way, and we're always going to do it that way. In the underlying thought is, well, because if I stop doing it that way, that means that was a waste of money, which is not true. It was maybe a necessary way for you to get your feet wet in the industry. Just like working for a coffee shop that sucks, where the leadership is terrible, the coffee's not that great, communication is bad. You could consider that a waste of time. I have been a barista at these places. Maybe you have as well. But your less than ideal experiences are not a waste of time if you show up as somebody who redeems the time. If you redeem the time, if you redeem the opportunity and use it for your advantage, virtually anything can prepare you. And especially if you end up in a place where, it is a good work environment. Okay. So I would say, let's think about this question of what's better, certifications and formal training, or real world experience, as, again, all of them can be helpful. None of them are the magic bullet that will solve all of your problems, because people we've got owners and operators who have worked in food service and maybe worked in coffee for a long time. They open a coffee shop, and it doesn't mean they learned anything in all of that time that they worked in coffee. They just assumed that the volume of time they spent would almost naturally mean that they would skate into success, when in fact that experience, still like a curriculum at a school, needed to be intentionally studied and applied strategically in that particular ecosystem of coffee shop that they were going to open, right? So you may have had 10 years or 20 years of working in cafes. That doesn't mean that the things you learned are always going to translate to now I know what to do as a manager, or now I know what to do as an owner. So a great way to think about this is that, it's helpful to hear people talk about their experience owning coffee shops. We do this on the show. The Keys to the Shop, we have Founder Friday episodes, and these are kind of mentorship moments for a lot of people. That's what I've been told. And just because they did it, though, that way, doesn't mean it works for you. So if somebody says, well, when you were managing cafes, what did you do here, here, and here? It's my job as a consultant to say, okay, well, here's what we did. But I perceive, based on our conversations about what you're dealing with now, that even though that's what we did, we are not you. They are not you. And that's up to you to know. And if you've hired a coach or a consultant, they can help you create the contextualization or consider the context to know whether or not you can apply the lesson that you thought you learned from somebody, where it may have been a cool idea, but it's not a one for one. You can't just drop it into your cafe and expect it to work. It's like when people get organ donation, they have to take anti-rejection medication the rest of their life because their body will reject that organ because they understand it's not from my body, right? So, and the analogy breaks down a little bit probably at some point, but I say this to impress upon you the importance of studying the moment and what is needed right now, and having a lot of experiences and education can help you, but it's not all going to apply. Not all of your experience will apply. Not all of your education will apply. So if you go to a 3 or 4 day school, if you go to an online course, you sign up for one and you spend many, many hours learning about extraction and things like that, you're maybe going to have an arsenal of tools to choose from that you can use in your coffee shop, but only if you know that that particular moment calls for that tool or that ingredient or that thing from your past experience. So that's how you use these things well. I kind of think you need both. Hey everyone, it's Chris, and I hope you're enjoying the episode. I wanted to talk to you about our friends at Arto Brick on Instagram. That's at Arto Brick, and you should reach out to Armin there if you're interested in hard surfaces, stonework, tile work in your coffee shop. They specialize in unique designs and helping your ideas come into reality. They are literally grounding your coffee shop in good design with their work that they do across many different industries, but they particularly love to help people create cafe spaces that are beautiful and have these unique details that really make it a special experience. And so go to arto.com to look at all of their work, but especially reach out to Armin and say you heard about them from Keys to the Shop at Arto Brick on Instagram. Now, also today, we're sponsored by our friends at the Pacific Barista Series. So if you go to the website pacificfoodservice.com, you're going to find all of the information you need to order samples, to see the lineup of all the plant-based performance beverages that they have developed over decades of working with the coffee professionals that have made this industry what it is. And therefore, the product, it's just a performance product. That's what it's called. Stands up to the heat from steaming, produces great texture, great flavor balance. You should really try it for yourself. Again, at pacificfoodservice.com. If you're looking for the best plant-based beverage options for your customers, then you should consider the Barista Series from Pacific. Now, let's get back to our episode. Okay, so back to the question that was originally asked, which is, what do you think about this idea that I can just gain knowledge and certifications and skip the experience part? Well, yeah, you can do that. Yes. And you can also have the experience without the certifications. What is necessary often I don't even want to address the what's needed. What's ideal is that you build enough knowledge in the industry, both in your head and in your body, that you embody this knowledge somehow, so that it's not just head knowledge. And some people embody this knowledge that they learn as they go. Like I said, they just say, I love coffee. I have the means, I have the time, I have the will. I will start a coffee brand. It's going to be scrappy. We're going to learn as we grow the business, and we do, and boom, that becomes this wild success. Now, that doesn't always happen, but it does happen, right? It may have been an easier road. And a lot of people on these Founder Friday episodes will say, we could have benefited from working in a coffee shop environment. So I always recommend people at least work as a barista a little bit, or a lot, just to get the embodied feeling, the feeling of what it's like to be behind the counter and receive the odd requests, to be bone tired and still have hours left in your shift, to be underfed and hydrated and over caffeinated and still be kind and extend yourself emotionally, to do that work. And it means that you can potentially lead better. Okay. uh, so yes, working in coffee, I think if you work in it with a mindset to say, I am going to learn from this, I'm not just going to throw open my arms and say, train me, teach me, infuse me with knowledge, do this, and I will be successful. No, you have to be in charge of your career. You have to be in charge of and steer your experiences the way, and use those opportunities the way you want them. Because otherwise, all you're going to be doing is collecting a lot of information, collecting a lot of years. And at the end, you're just going to be a shopping cart full of ingredients that you kind of collected in a hodgepodge manner. And it's what they say in a lot of the Master Chef episodes, or Hell's Kitchen or something, like fusion confusion. We try to get all like artsy, and we try to cosplay wisdom in the later end of our bid for starting a coffee shop, but we actually don't have that wisdom yet. We just have a lot of little facts, a lot of little ingredients, a lot of little anecdotes, but we haven't actually learned anything. We've we've been informed. You've been informed. That's different than learning. It's different than letting something change you the way experience changes you. Even just considering information and letting it simmer in your brain, to meditate on an episode that really resonates. I have books that I go back to and I read, or I listen to and then read the physical book, because it is a thing that I want to find bubbles up in my consciousness when I'm in a moment of decision, that will actually be me embodying that knowledge. But if I go through a certification, if I go through years of experience in a coffee shop, just grabbing stuff, if you're old enough to remember Supermarket Sweep and those other game shows where you had to collect a certain amount of groceries in a cart. Yeah, you put your arm out and you run down the cereal aisle and just put all the Rice Krispies in the cart. That's what it feels like sometimes for people who are pursuing education, because they feel like by adding numbers to or letters to their name, that's going to be some kind of a guarantee of success, and it's just not. So, and that's why those without any experience or education, but with a sense of self-awareness and intentionality, can outperform people that don't have that, but have way more experience technically, or way more knowledge from books, from education, from online. That's that kind of thing. So that's the answer to the question of which one is best. Is it formal education or is it experience? I think each one of those things are unique experiences that a person with the mindset to apply those things and be open to change who they are based on who they serve and what the opportunity is in front of them, can benefit from. And so, as you go forward, you can choose a good school. You can choose to, and probably should choose to, take the opportunity to work behind the bar. And I can't see why one would not. And the more you pursue those types of things with the right mindset, the better off you're going to be. And the more likely you're going to have a base knowledge that can turn into wisdom. So it's character, it's mindset, it's using these opportunities well, and really finding out what the context right now requires from all of that information. That's my answer. I hope that helps. And it's part of my job, I think, as a coach to help people think through some of the assumptions that they have about what is needed, what they need. Sometimes they're right. Sometimes they find out in its part of our conversation, they realize maybe this wasn't what I needed. In fact, maybe I already had the answer. This is part of why I think it's important that even though we've got a lot of resource in the industry, we also need to take a step backwards, sort of, to be considerate, to slow down and simplify so we can synthesize this stuff instead of just like piling it on and piling it on without consideration. So we're always advocates of simplicity, of being intentional, to meditate on these ideas, to consider them, and converse. Converse with yourself. You can converse with a coach. You can journal. I mean, you can really think it through. And then after you've done some of that, make a decision and then work that decision. I'm not advocating that you just spin your wheels and ruminate. It's a big difference between meditation and rumination, or even just considering options well, and being indecisive. Being a good leader and starting something, or even just having the ability to steer your own career well, means that you're going to have to make a lot of decisions. And if you didn't make the decision yesterday that you turned out the way you wanted, you can learn from that and make another decision. But there's going to be thousands of decisions that you're going to make in the future. And if you assure yourself, I'm just going to get a little bit better at decision making as I go, but I am going to decide, I am going to choose, and I'm going, whatever that choice is that I make, if it is to work in a coffee shop, I'm not going to be on my first shift and say, oh, well, maybe I should have taken that course. Maybe this was a big mistake. I'm here now. Oh boy, I don't know what to do. That's not going to be a good use of your time. Once you decide, be all in and invest well into that decision that you made. And after a while, maybe you then make the decision that you do need to leave that job. Maybe you've got enough experience from it. Same thing with a course. If you decide to take the course, take the course. Don't bail out mid-course. Do it. Experience it. You'll never know if it was worth it or not unless you did it. So you'll always be wondering, right? So that's what I think. And I hope that this episode was helpful for you. These resources that we have in the industry, there's way more ability for us to learn about coffee, to learn the science and the, information and the helpful knowledge of business and that kind of thing. I do really err on the side of, how are you going to live that out? Where does that find a home in practice? If it's experience on a bar, great. If it's in your own coffee bar right now that you have, or the one you've already started and you still need to learn, great. But let's apply that knowledge. Let's not procrastinate. Let's embody the things that we do learn and do it well. So great. Thanks everybody for joining me today. That was kind of an impromptu thing. I was just looking at this email saying, I wonder if answering this over an episode right this afternoon would be helpful. And so I do think we covered some good ground, but I want to know what you think. If you're interested in having a conversation with me about anything, really, you can just reach out, just the way this person did, who saw me at Coffee Fest. It's chris@keystotheshop.com. We also do coaching and consultation. So, like I said, if you're interested, reach out. So that's it. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. And as always, I hope this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.